Marianne,
Mm.
great to see you. Thank you for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I want to kick off with something that you said to me when we spoke that really kind of I thought was very, very interesting point that you made. You said events are no longer about meeting people, they're about creating content. Now, I know a lot of people that would say that's not true. You think it is. Just explain why.
Well, events are about meeting people, and that's the chemistry, that's the connectivity, that's the aha moments. But what we know to be true is that now in the age of AI, the age of high tech, is events are the last frontier of authentic human generated content. Think about it.
Um,
Everyone's, go
And
ahead.
just explain to people why you think that's important. I mean, I think it's true, but why is that important? Just explain that.
Authenticity. Authenticity. We just had a conversation with some friends of mine who are off on the break, teachers. They don't even know if their kids, the kids, students submitting papers, if it's AI generated or not. They don't even know if they even cracked the book. Events are if someone is up there and in giving a presentation, that's coming from a human. Now, maybe some of it was generated by an AI, but it is that moment of communications that
Mm.
has 100% authenticity because it comes from a human. And if you think about it, there's basically that is sort of like, like the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. This was recorded live here. Now, that happens to be just in the age in the next last 18 months with the rise of AI and the whole questioning of authenticity, which has come in with fakes and all those good things and fake news, where our whole societies are being inundated with falsehoods. But also, content is a terrible thing to waste when you're looking at how does your audience now engage with you, whether it's face to face or your online audience. It's not just coming to the event with you can do with AI and with other tools, is to take that thought leadership that has been expressed on stage, let's say, and there's nothing better than a speaker talking on stage with a live audience. You can feel the breath. The authenticity is all in the nonverbal body movements and all of those good things. Capture it, put it into Perplexity or ChatGTP or Claude, and then basically say, hey, please extract the thought leadership from this session
Mm.
and either make a blog post out of it, a press release out of it, or if you have the video, cut a video snippet of those highlights, put it up on your LinkedIn that's attached to your conference or your meeting, and say, oh, here's some thought leadership that happened at our meeting. What do you think? The conversation continues. The beat goes on. Your audience still gets engaged with you,
So,
whether they attended or not.
so what you're
Sorry?
saying is it's a vehicle for creating post-conference engagement, really, post-conference conversations. Is that what you're saying? I mean, is
I
that
think it's in continuing the conversation. I
yeah?
think that the walls between time can it can get blurred a bit. It's about, you know, everyone wants a distillation. No one, like, yourself. If you have an hour-long podcast, are people going to sit and watch the whole hour? No, they'll probably be pushing around, speeding around. If you published a thought leadership snippet or two from this podcast, you might get more people actually watching the podcast
Yeah.
because they get intrigued. I mean, it's all about attention. So if you give people bite-sized snippets, it's almost like Hansel and Gretel with a little following the breadcrumbs. Then they go, oh, there's the gingerbread house. Let's go inside. It's just, meeting people on how they are consuming media now. Like a face-to-face event is still media. You still are gathered together. There's communications happening. Now, how can you maximize the effect of your meeting, whether it's for sales or product or a cause related, whatever it has to be, all the time you spent producing it and curing that content, and it just stops? I don't get that.
Mm.
How can you take that and amplify it, not only to like reach out to the people who came or the people who couldn't come, but reach new audiences? and see where it goes and see what's resonating and see what's picking up so that you can amplify and connect with the
I mean,
goodness, the winners.
what you're describing is a relatively new phenomena, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of come along with the age of social medias that people can do that. I mean, I remember going to events 20 years ago when nothing was recorded. There were no cameras, there was no mobile phones, there was nothing. That world has changed, though, isn't it? Really, and what you're suggesting, if I've got this right, is that that opens the door to a whole load more things. Is that fair?
Sure does. I mean, as I said, content's a terrible thing to waste. We take for our conferences, even if it's just audio only, doesn't even not even videotaped, those transcripts in a large language model, whether it's, Notebook or whether it's Perplexity or Chat GTP, and then, you want to do a report like what was the highlights of this event? Well, the AI will pull it out for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, you can put a report together, you can actually start planning content for the next year, and then you can also do the post-event amplification to kind of like, here's what was discussed. What do you think? We have to have more conversation. I mean, with the media we have now, it's more two-way conversation. And I think in the old days, yes, people thought meetings came there, you sat in a darkened room and you were spoken to,
Mm.
and usually you were freezing to death, and it was like 4 hour blocks. Those meetings are not going to happen anymore because the boomers put up with it, but the Gen Zers and the alphas will not. They want to consume content, whether it's face to face or on their phone or on a device, in ways that are much more fluid and much more tailored to how they ingest information.
I mean, your business is based on that. I mean, when did you realize this was starting to be such an important thing? I mean, it clearly is an important thing. I mean, I know that from my goddaughter. She tells me all about it. I mean, so it's clearly important to the younger generation. I mean, when did you
Yes.
first realize this was starting to happen, and how did you kind of how did you start to ride that trend?
So when did I fall off my horse like St. Paul going to Damascus? When did I have that aha moment? It happened a really long time ago, but not
Right.
that long ago. It happened in around 2000. And I'll give you some context. Is my company Map Digital, we built a platform called Meta Meetings. We are based in New York City. Since we're based in New York City, we work with the banks, the financial services,
Mhm.
because they're the ones who always marketing the publicly traded companies that they are
Yeah.
selling to the investors. So it's a marketplace and high stakes, high stakes. And that's just the crucible that I grew up in. And they were the first adapters of technology. They had the money and they also needed speed. Everything about the banks and trading is speed. So I grew up in a very rarefied planet. Okay. Not saying everyone's going to have this experience because the money trail demanded
Yeah,
these
yeah,
these
yeah, yeah.
constraints. A thing happened in 2000 called Regulation Full Disclosure by the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, that made webcasting standard at all these conferences. So these
Okay.
conferences that we produce, like our technology conference, this is the oldest technology conference. I work for a major bank, and it's the one that started Silicon Valley, but it's mergers and acquisitions later. It's like 230 sessions, companies, all of a sudden they had to be webcast live. That happened in 2000. I do a healthcare conference that has 630 sessions.
Mhm.
Okay. So after a while, I'm up in the cloud and I'm looking to see who's in the room, obviously, then who are listening to these webcasts live. Usually it's 5 times the amount of people who are in the room that are
Wow.
listening. And
Wow.
then I start seeing how long this content was being shared. Now,
Mhm.
usually when someone is financial, it's like, Pfizer will go up there and say, buy my stock, and then Pfizer will go to maybe they're at JP Morgan one week and 3 weeks later they're at Citibank. So it's not that different, maybe a decimal point here or there. I was watching how long that content listed and where it went and who was sharing it. And all of a sudden, it was like, maybe there is a long tail value for content on the web. And this is in 2000, before social media really took
Yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah.
It didn't really come clean or come down um, until I would say about 10 years ago for us. And that's when I guess you saw 12, I guess 2012 was when social media really kicked off in many ways, Facebook and all those other things.
Yeah.
And working with the major financial services and the major, healthcare companies and stuff, they know what they're doing and they don't need any more audience. They basically would like to have more people of influence hear their message, but they don't need to grow their audience. They need to almost sometimes cull it, so it's just the
Yeah.
people who are going to be
Yeah.
buying. I got approached by to do some social good work. So basically, my social good is, getting women funded, women founders funded.
Yeah.
So doing some work with the UN with these conferences that were saying, well, this is called the Equality Moonshot. We want to get women 1/3 of the $200 trillion that are going to be spent on the SDGs and these great conferences and talking about how to get involved in renewables and ag tech and space technology, getting more women founders focused on that. So good to have a conference at the UN that has 200 people there. That thought leadership was so amazing.
Mhm.
How come it wasn't distributed over social media so we could get
Okay.
more women? That because of need to get audience and not having any money. And what was the cheap and the cheerful way of doing it was capturing the video from the webcast that the UN webcasts everything, but they don't have an audience. Me capturing it, so not putting in video, not having paying people with video, equipment and stuff, and then just putting it on our Meta Meetings platform, which we work with the banks, editing it and stuff like that, and then saying, that was very compelling. Maybe we'll put a little snippet out, like a coming attraction on Facebook to bring people back to the website to listen to all of it. And better yet, maybe we'll put a LinkedIn website for that
Mhm.
conference so we can have that conversation. And then, for someone to come back into a website behind a username and password, or to give their username and their email address is another commit. Let's just get this conversation going. We saw exponential results.
Wow. Wow. And let me ask you about that because I remember sort of pre-COVID. So I'm talking about, 18, sorry, 2019, 2018,
Right.
2020. I mean,
Before
COVID kicked off. Yeah.
2020, the dreaded year of
Yeah.
2020.
And all the conversation there was around face to face. There was a lot less conversation about doing stuff online. I mean, that whole debate has shifted now, of course. And, you know, I mean, so if you go back to, when you're talking about, I mean, you must have been really challenging the status quo about how stuff was done. I mean, how did that feel? Sort of swimming upstream, to coin a phrase. I mean, how did that feel?
Well, thank you for letting me share my pain of being an innovator because you get punished for doing it, but
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. That
you
was why
do.
I
I
asked
mean,
you.
like, the whole thing adage, if you step out of line, the arrows are being shot from you, not even from the front, but from behind.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we had was a pressing need. Okay. And so I was brought into this consortium called the Equality Moonshot, which were people from the UN, from private, from very high, publicly traded companies, from major foundations, from angel investors, Club of Rome. I mean, and I was the tech person. They go, we have to do things differently. So it was a Hail Mary prayer to me to say, can you just help us maximize this
Yeah.
with no money? I said, oh, sure. I'm like little Alice in Wonderland. I'll just jump down that rabbit hole and I will find the secret garden. And that's what happened. So it was out of need. At first, it was very interesting because people understood the idea of gathering it and putting it on the website because they like seeing themselves, but they could not understand that that snippet would actually get other people to act. And there's something very inherent that once the event is over, like, thank you very much, and drinks start, the event disappears for them. The ideas, the correspondence, the whole
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah. Yeah.
disappears. And they cannot comprehend the value of taking the candidates, the highlights, and extending it a week or two out. I like to do it like within 24 hours or 48 hours because you're still working on the momentum. They think it's time to go home to put their slippers on. Now, I believe that's the time you have another crew of people who get very busy at that time because you're maximizing on all the pre-production, the thought leadership, all the research, the honing you did. You want to make sure the message, the audience, response, and that you're actually answering what was going on, or you're really, really communicating well. Then you have another chance to take all of that great work and amplify it to really see how far it goes, see what you listen back to it, and develop new audiences. So it's another way of thinking about events. And I truly believe, I must say, the secret of it is having a live event. It's just you could videotape those little snippets, those little thought leadership snippets and send them out there. But there's something about delivering something live. And I come from the theater. There's something about you can feel the audience, you can feel the breath, the person when they're delivering it. It really matters. You can see that I'm
And what,
stuttering
and let me ask you, why is that the case? I mean, why does that? Because I mean, at one
because
level,
we're live. Because we're human beings. You can almost feel, you can feel I mean, sometimes you can feel the audience like being with the speaker as they're delivering it.
Mm,
You've watched the TED Talks, and sometimes you can see when the person stops because the audience has responded.
mm,
I was there. It's authentic.
mm,
It makes me feel. I mean, I think that we're heading in a situation where everything is not everything's not authentic. And the
mm,
more we can bring authentic back, it's just as human beings, we pick up our communications. It was it 85% of our communications comes from nonverbal, and now we're
mm,
kind of getting rid of it.
mm.
And then a live event, an audience, a speaker, that's nonverbal everywhere, because you know yourself when you speak.
Yeah, yeah. And let me ask you about competing in the global market. I mean, your technology is very specialized. One of the great things about the, if you like, the kind of current situation is that you can compete anywhere. I mean, your technology could deliver stuff for people doing events in, I don't know, Rio de Janeiro or something, or London. The other side to that is that you're also competing in a global market, and there are lots of other competitors potentially that can do either the same things or similar things. I mean, how do you feel about building a business in that environment?
It's pretty interesting because it was how did I build the business? I mean, that's the real question. Why did I build this business? I didn't build this, I didn't go to Stanford and decide to drop out in sophomore year because I wanted to have an event platform. That's not how it happened. It happened that I was working with clients at the age of the internet, and they kept saying, "Can you help me solve this problem?" And these
Yeah,
happen to be the big financial services. To compete on a global market is interesting. As I said, we are every platform's different because of where they grew up. Now, if you're a major trade show company, the platform that has to handle booths and all that stuff like that, you're very different from us.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
We deal with information that absolutely matters. When those publicly traded companies go up there and say, let's say Pfizer, buy my stock. That content really matters. So I
Mm,
come from a place where the content matters, the speakers matter, and the receivers matter.
mm,
Most conferences don't care about one or the other.
mm,
So we are coming from this crucible, like I keep saying, because a trade is hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? And this is the difference. So this getting the content there, getting it delivered correctly, having the right presentation there, having the Q&A and having who downloaded, who watched, all that data, that informs to the bank how effective the message got across. Maybe there's a possibility of somebody there who could be part of a trade. You don't know. We can look at the data. We send it off to them. They examine all of that. So we become an active sales agent for them in a way, helping them make some decisions. So if we position ourselves, if your audience really matters to you and your content's really compelling, you need to use us.
I mean, you're kind
If
of like a broker in that sense, aren't you?
Yeah, but I wish I was involved in the deal because if I got 1% of 1%, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be holding court in a castle. I mean, it'd be just a
Yeah,
little different.
yeah,
But one thing I've learned, because I have a background in direct marketing, I always look where the money is. Where's the revenue? It's not the technology. It's not that the fact that my conference website is so interactive and it's so beautiful. That all matters, of course. It's how do I help my client achieve their strategic sales objectives? These are the questions I ask over and over again. How can I help you make better one-on-one meetings? If I deliver to you in a webhook, in an API, all the real time who watched what, who downloaded what. Now, most of that, they kind of know who's in the room and all those good
yeah,
things.
yeah,
But that 1% time, that pop-up where let's say Blackstone is in the room listening to Verizon, and we're knocking on the door to see, is there a one-on-one meeting set up with Verizon and Blackstone? Oh, no, there's not. That epiphany, that could mean hundreds of millions of
yeah.
dollars.
And what you're saying also is that it's not just that meetings aren't about meeting people, they're about content. It's also about that content is part of your sales funnel or it drives your sales
Absolutely.
funnel. So that's the
Mhm.
jump, isn't it? It's from events as places where people meet each other to events as a vehicle for creating sales content
Exactly.
material marketing. I mean, which is
So
an
think about it.
interesting kind
Yeah.
of arc of development there, isn't it?
A good salesperson isn't somebody who's
Mm,
their product. They're pushing knowledge or they're asking questions or they're being in a compelling situation where they're seen as an advisor, as a trusted advisor. So think about this. You might have a user group, let's say Oracle having a user group, and you have incredible content that's going out there. And you're calling upon one of your clients. You can go through that conference and say, here's 3 sessions that happened, and here's some snippets from it. We think that this might, address, it might not even be about an Oracle product.
mm,
Here's something that we think that might help you in your conversations internally. We just want to share knowledge with you. And if that's at that salesperson's fingertips, it's very interesting. And this comes from an exact example. Oracle Open World was run by a man named Paul Salinger, who was definitely a mentor of mine. Believe me, I did borrow a couple of his ideas along the way. He recorded every session of Oracle Open World, which is massive. It's bigger than the healthcare conference that I produced, but it's massive. Takes over
mm,
San Francisco. In fact, it has actually left San Francisco, but back in the day, it took it over practically the whole city. And every session was recorded. And then every session was then, they called it speech to tech optimization. So they could take the video and search for keywords within the video. You can't search video in its pure form right now. But if you get the transcript that has time code and the video, marry
yeah,
it together, you can search. So he made content usable.
mm,
So I said to him, I said, and he really wanted the users, like the Oracle people who come to Oracle Open World are the people who are developing on Oracle. So he wanted them to have that library and really ingest in that content. And I said, okay, who looks at this afterwards? He goes, for the first week or so, some of those users go back and look at key things. And then it goes off, it dissipates. And then our clients will go back and search when they presented and their information. But the surprise, he said, was our sales force uses it all the time. They go back to Oracle Open World and make a search so they can have a customized presentation to the
mm.
client. So content's a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah. Let me ask you about something that sort of relates to that. I mean, one of the other interesting things about building a business in the modern environment is that you're building it within the age of AI, so within the age of social media, which means you can be scrutinized. Your staff can go and say anything. Your customers can review. There's a tremendous amount of scrutiny, and if that goes wrong, if it doesn't always go wrong, but if it does go wrong, it can have really profound effects. I mean, what's your sense of if you like, opening Pandora's box. Because the great thing about content is, you could do all sorts of stuff with it if it's digital. But also there are some quite significant risks around that. I mean, what's your take on those sorts of issues?
Well, it's risk management everywhere. In fact, we live in the land of compliance. I mean,
Yeah.
our laptops aren't allowed, the ones that we work on site with our banking clients, and even to some degree, some of the people in our office, because we do develop software, can't have social media on them
Mm.
because it's very easy. Like I got this
Yeah.
this little brief from the client, I could slip it into Facebook in a second, you know. So there is that level of trust, which is a very interesting word in this day and age that we're living in, that where trust gets broken, but there's a whole level of trust and compliance and checks and balances. So anything that I send out, let's say I'm doing a conference, let's say I'm doing the conference at the UN on getting women involved in sustainability. Every person that they sign a disclosure from me that I'm going to be capturing them, I'm going to be issuing the social media.
Okay.
Please, please, no liability for myself and the organizations and all those good things. Then I send the snippet to every speaker and have them approve it. I'm never going to send something out that someone hasn't approved
Mm.
because it's reputation management and it's worth the extra step. Okay. And it's, again, reputation for my company, for my client's company, and for the speaker. And the more with the speakers, I help make their brand, so I don't want to, because that goes exponential. So
Yeah.
I think that that level of respect going all the way around, a little bit more time involved, but it makes much better campfire,
Yeah. I
much
mean,
better
it's a
digital
it's a
campfire.
it's a great win-win if you get it right, isn't
Correct.
it? It's a great win-win. Let me just ask you, you've mentioned on about three occasions the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, what is it in particular interests you about that area? I mean, like you, I think it's a really interesting. I mean, there are some interesting tensions within the development goals. What is your particular interest in that? I mean, you've mentioned the sort of stuff you're doing with women. I mean, where does all that come from, and how does that relate to your business? I mean, why that area in particular?
It's very funny because, I didn't even know what the SDGs were 10 years ago, and I thought it was like, a sexually transmitted disease. I mean, I really thought, I mean, like most Americans don't have a clue what an SDG is, okay? In Europe, you're so much further ahead than the Americans are. Um, and it was something where it became fundamental to me, not, coming from a financial services background, but being in financial services, it became a place where if we don't have sustainability, we're not going to have a future. So why don't we start funding the future?
Mm.
And funding the future, I mean, yes, of course, AI and all those good things, but if we don't have water and we don't have good agricultural yields, and if we don't have renewables, it's all abstraction at this point. And also, where are the wars going to come from? The wars are going to come from the lack of agriculture and
Yeah.
energy. And if you look at
Mm.
Ukraine, Ukraine is about that. It's about oil and it's about agriculture. You look about having Ukraine in the state that it's in, not having that breadbasket is almost putting countries in default, so it's not, it's fundamental. And then I was looking where women myself who have formed businesses and have built technology platforms. Okay, now I did not set out to be a software engineer platform. I started to be a filmmaker and I was in advertising. Okay, so this was not, so
Mm.
many people say, "What's your degree?" Who cares? I took an opportunity where it was there and built it.
Yeah.
Where I see for the future for women to get more involved and to solve the real problems is to get into sustainability and every country across the board. I mean, viruses don't understand borders.
Mm.
Famine does not understand borders. So if you really want to get into a good business and you want to make a dent and change, create better futures for us all, start looking at the Drake, which is deep tech, renewable agriculture, transportation, education, and of course, healthcare. This is where the hundred of trillion of dollars are going to be spent. Of course, they're going to be spent on AI, and of course, they're going to be spent on data centers. But if you don't have a grid, which we don't in the United States,
Mm.
doesn't matter. how many data centers that you build, if you don't have a good educational system. So these are the fundamental things to start
But, I
getting
mean, I
female
agree,
entrepreneurs looking at.
I agree with you about those things, but I mean, in the US, though, there's a lot of pushback around that, and there's a lot of people that are saying the cost of developing that is too high. I mean, I'm not, Trump and his drill baby drill and get the oil out, and I mean, there's a lot of pushback on that
There
idea. I
is
mean,
a
how
lot of
do you?
pushback, but there's not. But I must tell you, Trump talks a lot, and I don't want to even speak about the current occupant of Pennsylvania Avenue. Trump isn't the market, okay? And we'll see. The jury's still out with some of the economic policies that he's put into place. I know that I do major energy conferences,
Hmm.
and we have a drinking game. Every time they say renewable energy, we drink, and we're usually drunk by the end of it. That's
Right.
where the new jobs are going to happen, and
That's a
that's where
very
more of the
interesting
jobs.
proxy. Yeah.
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 You know how
Okay.
you play beer? It's like it's how they say renewables, like we're like, hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let me tell you, the money follows the money. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's not drill baby drill. I mean, it's very interesting. They're all talking about, all the data centers right now. Now, the state of Texas, their electrical grid froze last year.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so we're talking about you want all this, you want to spend hundreds of billions of dollars in data centers, and you don't have an electrical grid to put it over.
Yeah.
So there's fundamental things that have to happen. So it's well, we in the United States we were very um we're we take a lot of risk. Europe doesn't. So a lot of money the VC spend, never get a lot of risk to get a small
Yeah.
distance
Yeah.
to get
Yeah.
those to get
Yeah.
those Nvidias or to get those Facebooks or whatever. But it's also that we have to go back and be much more of that, oh my gosh, excuse me, socialism, to really go back and to see what our infrastructure is and to build a better education system and to build a better, these are fundamental. So maybe we'll have this conversation in 50 years and see who the winner is.
Yeah. No, that'll be interesting. I'll probably be dead by then, but it'd be an
Me
interesting
too.
conversation.
I plan to be actually.
Let me ask you about, I mean, again, you're building a business globally. I mean, tell me about getting the right people on board. I mean, it seems to me that the CEO plays a key role in building a business, but you can't really make huge amounts of progress unless you've got some people helping you along the way. I mean, what's your take on getting the right people on board? I mean, given that you've got to have people that I guess chime with your view about the importance of those things. I mean, what's your take on that?
Um, People are fundamental. In fact, they're more important than the platform, actually. Platform can change. It's how you build your team is the fundamental for your success. You don't want people all thinking like you. I hire for character. I hire for enthusiasm.
Right.
I hire for people who are curious. I hire for people who are courteous, who are respectful to each other, who are good people. Okay. I hire anyone can be taught anything. But when we work, since we actually produce the event, so I also have a theater background, I don't know if I mentioned that. You can't accept any bozos in theater. I mean, 8 o'clock curtain means 8 o'clock curtain. Doesn't
You
mean
just
they're
can't
bozo.
carry people in that environment, can you?
Can't carry them. And anyone, even if they're completely a genius and they're toxic, get rid of them immediately.
Mm.
If they eat your people and they're mean to your people and you have a culture of fear, get rid of them. And one thing I will say, I have no respect for Jeff Bezos and some of them because they believe having people with anxiety makes them better and more effective employees. These type of people have no respect for them at all. I think that you need to have a team that's interdisciplinary. And I also believe, I'll tell you a story about that. They have to respect each other and work together. And any discourse, any dissidence, you nip it in the bud. And as we say at Map Digital, there is no bus. Therefore, you cannot be thrown under it.
Mm.
Raise your hand, raise it loud, sing an aria if something goes wrong. We'll get it done. So That level of fundamental trust, if you have that, you can punch way above your weight and cantilever and respond because it's a we, truly a we. It has nothing really to do with me, except that's the environment I foster.
Mm. And tell me about your customers. I mean, building, I mean, you've used the word trust on a few occasions. It seems to me that given what you're doing with people's content, I mean, because it's your clients, they have their events and you turn their content and put it out there in all sorts of different places. I mean, it seems to me that there's a really important trust component there. I mean, they've got to trust you to do what you do without it going horribly wrong or causing too many problems. I mean, what's your take on building relationships with customers? You talked a lot about how you build relationships with staff and get people on the bus there, but what's your take on building relationships with customers?
I think it's the same way. I mean, obviously customers, I think it's the attitude of when you go working with a customer is that I understand that I'm their advocate. My job is to make their job easier.
Mm.
My job is not to necessarily sell my software. My job is to listen acutely so that I can say, let's try this, or have you maybe even recommending another platform, whatever it does to get the problem solved. But the biggest thing that we learned about trust in the early days of the internet, when everything went boom, I
Hmm.
mean, outages. I mean, trying to explain to a client why the internet went down because a backhoe in Las Vegas, and then, they look at you like you're out of your mind. And two things we said to our clients: we will never lie to you. If something goes wrong, usually the first thing I tell you is not true because we really find out what's happening, but I will never lie to you and we'll never abandon you.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many technology providers that I know who have walked off site when something has happened. Or we will see it to the end. So we'll give you our very best. Okay, we expect the very best from you, being very forthcoming to us. We expect you to pay us on time. We expect you to respect our people. We expect you to have as much full disclosure so we can help you. I have retired a very major bank for disrespecting an employee.
Mm.
Just said, take my name out of your Rolodex, which was an old-fashioned term. I couldn't afford to work with that client anymore because every time I would say you have to, nobody would draw the short straw. So I said, I can't afford to work with you. And it's
Yeah.
true. I mean, if you're going to have a team, you have to respect them both sides. But you have to also prove to your client that you are trustworthy, that I'm here to help you. So if you're hiding and not telling me things that I need to know, or you don't trust me because I'm a tech vendor, then we're not a good match.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a number of other people I've spoken to have talked about the need sometimes to fire clients. Um,
Absolutely. A toxic client
yeah,
will eat your people alive and it's not worth. You could go out and get a client that will give you tenfold.
yeah. Let me ask you about. I mean, that's easy to say at one level. Let me ask you about different parts of the world. I mean, doing business in New York is very different from doing business in London, different from doing business in Singapore, for example. I mean, how do you, given the nature of what you do, which is very personalized, I mean, different people that are running events, they want it to work for their event, not just any event, but for their event. So it's quite personalized, it seems to me. How do you sort of tailor your approach to people in different parts of the world? I mean, it could be New York and Texas. It could be New York and London. I mean, what's your view on that kind of localization sort of
It
agenda?
was really, really interesting you say this because when we went to virtual, literally went to virtual
Mm.
overnight. And
Mm.
we were so lucky, we're not lucky. We were able with my team to take the MetaMeetings platform and still do a conference that we're not taking the speaker from the back of the ballroom, plugging
Yeah.
into the board. We took it from Zoom. We figured that out in like 2 hours. So all of a sudden, we were working globally,
Mm.
all on the phone. So there'd be Singapore, Brazil, London, all in one day. Okay, we're all working from our kitchen tables. Okay, but nevertheless, these are different cultural, constructs. It's very difficult to, you might speak English, as we know.
Mhm.
As an American, I know from working in London, we speak English, but we do not speak the same language
No,
on
that's
many
right. That's
occasions.
right. That's partly what's behind my question.
And that's exactly true. And I tell my staff that also, especially when we started working with London and they were very stressed out, this London client. They were freaked out. And we not only had the cultural differences, we also had a client in duress. So what we did was is everything in writing, everything down as benchmarks, everything with deadlines. If this happens, then this won't happen. We call it the critical path. We break it down into
Okay.
minutia detail. That is basically helpful. So everyone keeps on track. So there's no Hugh said, he said. We don't want any gray area. This is coming from the theater background or producing a film. If it's not on the page, it will not get staged.
Mm.
We don't want misinterpretations. We want everything clear and we want to protect you. You can take this paperwork and send it to your internal team saying, here, if we don't do this, it's not me saying it, you said, it's on the paper. You can always change the paper, but
Mm.
don't put the person in the emotional value. Also, no joking around. Okay. There's terms and Americans can say things that are kind of like, so long. It can be a little like, little like off the cuff, and it really offends the British sensibility. We're considered sometimes by the Brits as being servants. They kind of think that we're not deferential enough. Well, don't ask a New Yorker to be deferential. It's just not going to
It's
happen.
not going to work, is it?
It's not
Yeah.
going to work. So don't even get yourself in that situation. When you get into that situation where it becomes attitudinal, to
Mm.
speak on a flip term, that's when I come in. Don't fight the battles. Everything is like you are basically, like you're working in a hotel. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Call Mary Ann and she'll sort it out. Or call your supervisor. We can't fight those cultural wars. And the same thing happens sometimes when we work with some of our clients from Asia. They
Mm.
never say no.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
they really mean is no way. Okay. So it's a question of us. We believe if it's on the page and it's clear, the communication,
Okay.
we try not to get, and sometimes in Latin America too, it's very different too, you know, and it's just a question of us trying to learn the cultural differences.
Mm.
But then again, we always have to fall back on performance. So we honor you, the client, enough
Mm.
to have a backbone. And this will keep us all as straight as
Yeah.
possible
And-
as we miscommunicate with each other.
Yeah, yeah. But let me ask you about your filmmaking background. That's a really interesting. I'm always interested in the things that people bring into their business from something that they've done before or that is outside that world. I mean, what would you say? I mean, in what way has being a filmmaker? I know you've touched on a couple of things, but in what way has being a filmmaker really influenced the way you've built the business? Has it had a big impact? It sounds like it has.
It's massive. Didn't know it. And that's why when people said, what did you study at school? I was once giving a lecture about how to present and in Italy, and of course they're very hierarchical, about
Yeah.
what education you had. So they said to me, oh, what's your background? What's your educational background? And I said, I'm a punk rocker. And you could have seen how they were translating the punk rocker. It was so funny to hear it come back.
Yeah.
Being a filmmaker or being anything in the time-based arts, dance, music,
Yeah.
film,
Yeah.
it's storytelling, it's space, it's taking the audience or the user of the software, which is the audience, through a journey, through a process, empathetically understanding this is opening scene. This happens here, and then this happens, and that happens. Our programmers, I look for when I hire programmers, if they have a music or any time-based art background, I hire them
And
immediately.
why is the time-based thing so important? Just explain
Think
that for
about it.
people.
Well, music is math. So is dance. Dance is
Yeah.
totally math. It's all counting and it's all fractals and it's all geometry. If you look at how they choreograph,
Yeah.
it's math. Dance is movable math. And filmmaking in some ways is math too. It's time-based. You're going through, you have music and you have sound and you have visual. Okay. So there's lots of levels of
Yeah.
things coming together. They have to fit. Most software developers go, I'm a female. And when I developed my MetaMeetings platform, everything goes home. Everything works. That doesn't make you cry. You don't have to click 4 times. If I have to bend the code to make it nicer for you, welcome into my house. So there's a level of empathy. There's a level of a journey you're taking somebody on. It's a different way of looking at the process.
Mm.
It truly is. That's why studying art is a very important thing because that's how we communicate the world. We communicate philosophy, we communicate reality through the stories we tell and the art we make.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let me ask you, just before we wind up, let me ask you about the journey that you've been on. I mean, strikes me that it's been a pretty interesting journey. I mean, going from filmmaking and theatre to running a global tech business. I mean, it seems like I mean, what have you learned from that? I mean, when you look back on the journey, what would you say are the big things that have the really big things that you've taken away?
Well, I think if you look at the journey, it wasn't like I said, I'm going to run Map Digital and Meta Meetings and produce the largest investment banking conference in the world for nearly 30 years. That wasn't when I was
Yeah.
at Temple University. It wasn't in my thoughts. It was more curiosity, constant curiosity. And there's a one epiphany, the one thing that happened to me, and I have friends, I'm from Philadelphia, and one thing about Philadelphians, we keep our friends. You can never get rid of a friend in Philadelphia. It just doesn't happen. Okay, which is really, we are the city of brotherly love, even though our sports teams are kind of tough. Anyway, um, is the whole thing of the global village. I was in communications college, communications class, and the teacher was talking about Marshall McLuhan and the global village, that one day, and that during this day, we will be a global village.
Mm.
And it was electronic information that would be
Mm.
disseminated, and that would change the world.
And it has, doesn't it?
Didn't-
It has.
Yes. So Marshall didn't see the internet, but he predicted it. So it wasn't electronic, but it's actual data going through. I always had in my heart of hearts this wanting to communicate, to disseminate information. So whether it's doing direct marketing commercials for Time magazine, learning how to write copy that had people do in action, now that was actually a transaction, but I also learned the power of content to be persuasive. And
Mm.
that was on, television and radio, but now, obviously that's where the snippets came from. Doing those direct marketing commercials that are 2 minutes and you cut them down to 1 minute and 30 seconds. That was being taught how to do snippets in my early part of my career. We just didn't call it that then, but that
Mm.
same training was in the brain. And then basically when I found the internet, or the internet found me, because it was totally a surprise. I went to a party with my artist friends. I used to work at PS1, which is part of the Museum of Metropolitan, excuse me, the Museum of Modern Art now, but it was an alternative space. It was the artists who were on the internet, not the business people.
Mm.
And that's how I got pulled into it. So the whole thing of sharing information and to have a catalyst for change is something that always was interesting to me. So it didn't matter whether it was writing copy or, working in communications or working on the internet. It was all very interesting to me about how can media make change.
Mm. And if you went back to the beginning, knowing what you know now, is there anything you'd do differently?
I think what I would do differently is I'm really fascinating. I should have taken more math, I think, and more engineering
Right.
because I have a love for it, and I really wish maybe if I had been another. In fact, I come from an engineering family. I wish I fell more into that. I was always the artist and I was the rebel. But that's fine because I mean I did pick it up anyway, and but I would have loved that too. I think there's also something that's very interesting. I think what I found is that there are so few people. So when innovation comes, a lot of times the people are not listening in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. And I find it, I think there's a classism about where
Yeah.
innovation comes from. There's lots of talented people, just very little opportunity. That's why I fight very hard for diversity for
Mhm.
women and all cognitive diversity. We can't have male, pale, and stale, excuse me, Paul, but we have to have other voices, other ways of looking at solving problems. That's why I'm very involved with the SDGs and getting women in there. They'll if water supply in their village, they'll find it. They'll make a reason for it. I think the way I created my business and my software is very different from my competitors, and
Yeah.
because of where I come from. So I think that what I would have differently is probably have more access to opportunity. But
Yeah.
I think
I mean,
that is not
the
me.
thing that, I mean, I'm absolutely with you on the diversity thing. I mean, it's part of who we are. I
Sure.
mean, there's only one Mary Ann Pierce on the planet. There's 8 billion
Thank
people.
God.
There's only you. And there's no doubt about that. So I'm a huge believer in the diversity thing. I mean, it seems daft. You know,
Daft. Yeah.
just it's just part of who we are.
Yeah.
So, but one last thing. So, if you were to give some advice to somebody starting out, a rookie CEO, perhaps somebody at the beginning of their career, what would your one golden nugget of advice be, given what you've learned?
Um, Couple things. Where you look is where you go. Okay.
What do you mean by
Also,
that? Just explain that. What do you mean by
if
that?
you look down, if you look like with anger, where you look is where you go. Whatever you aspire to, go for it. And when you're young, take as much risk as you can. Even if your parents and your peers think you're crazy, get as much experience as you can. Because I'm using every ounce of experience of that artistic 20s and 30s
Hmm.
where I didn't have, I barely could make rent. Home that stuff is firing a lot of the things that I'm working on, especially now in AI. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Also, network as much as you can. Go and meet as many people as you can. Do good yourself. Ask how you can be useful. Create a community. Your network is what's going to push you through and help you. And it might be somebody you help, like, 20 years ago. It might not come from them, but it might come from somebody who saw what happened. And you'd be surprised how many people still hold you in their heart or in esteem. Network, network, network. That's where ideas come from. That's where companies get built.
Great advice, I think, Mary. Thank you for taking some time to share that with us. I mean, fascinating journey, fascinating bit of technology you've developed, and really appreciate you making time to come and talk about it with us. So, and good luck going forward. I mean, I think you've got lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. So good luck going forward, and hopefully we'll speak again soon.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Cheers, Mary. Bye bye.